The night was colder than usual, and Ethan wrapped his worn jacket tighter as he crossed the frosted field back to the barn. The horses had been restless all evening, and though his father had already gone to bed, Ethan couldn't sleep with the thought that something was wrong. He pushed open the barn door, the hinges squeaking softly, and froze. There was something lying in the hay between the stalls. At first, he thought it was a trick of the moonlight slipping through the gaps in the wooden roof, but then it moved. A faint, trembling motion, like shallow breathing. Ethan's pulse quickened. The figure was small, slender, wrapped in tattered scraps of strange fabric that shimmered faintly even in the dim light. Her skin wasn't human pale, but glowing faintly silver blue, and her eyes, though half closed, reflected the lantern he carried like molten stars. She looked dying. She coughed weakly, a sound that echoed strangely, as if her chest carried more than one voice. Her hand reached out, fingers long and trembling, as though trying to hold on to the earth itself. Ethan's instinct screamed at him to run back to the house, wake his father, call someone, anyone. But something about the desperation in her movement froze him in place. She whispered something. The words were broken, not English, but a sound like bells carried by the wind. Ethan crouched slowly, setting the lantern beside him. He slipped off the blanket he'd carried from the house. It was old, patched in many places, but warm, and gently draped it over her. The alien girl shuddered, clutching it with surprising strength for someone so weak. A tear slipped down her glowing cheek. She met his gaze for the briefest moment, as though trying to speak without words. Then her eyes slid shut. Ethan sat there for a long time, listening to her shallow breaths. Fear gave way to a strange, protective calm. Whoever she was, whatever she was, she needed him. He had no idea what to do, but leaving her wasn't an option. He stayed awake the rest of the night, sitting against the stall, making sure she was still breathing. When the first light of dawn crept across the fields, Ethan stirred at the sound of horses, snorting nervously. He stood, rubbing his eyes, and realized the barn wasn't quiet anymore. The air buzzed faintly, a hum like distant thunder. He stepped outside and froze. Figures. Dozens of them. No, hundreds. At least 100 warriors, armored in gleaming metal unlike anything he'd ever seen, stood silently in the morning mist, surrounding the barn. Their armor reflected the sunrise, each of them carrying long weapons that shimmered with energy. Their faces were hidden behind helmets, but their presence was overwhelming, like a storm that had come alive. Ethan's knees nearly buckled. His first thought was that they'd come for him, that he'd committed some terrible crime by helping her. His second was that maybe they weren't even real, that this was some fever dream brought on by exhaustion. But the ground shook beneath their boots, and the frost cracked under their weight. They were real. One of them stepped forward, taller than the rest, his armor etched with glowing runes. He lifted a hand, and the warriors parted, clearing a path. Ethan swallowed hard, his mouth dry as the leader approached. "You!" The warrior's voice boomed, distorted to the helm but still perfectly clear. "Human boy." Ethan's heart pounded. He couldn't even think of running. I didn't do anything," he stammered, his voice cracking. The warrior tilted his head, almost curiously. "You sheltered her." Ethan glanced back at the barn, at the fragile figure wrapped in his blanket inside. "She was dying," he said, voice steadier now. "I couldn't just leave her." A strange silence fell. The army didn't move, but the hum in the air deepened, like the world itself was listening. The leader finally reached up and removed his helm. His face was sharp, his skin carrying the same faint glow as the girl's, but his eyes, deep and piercing, studied Ethan with something almost like respect. "She is no ordinary child," he said, voice quieter now. "She is the last heir of our fallen house. We searched across the stars, and fate brought her here to your barn." Ethan blinked, trying to process the words. "Heir. She is a princess," the warrior continued, his gaze never wavering. "And you, human boy, gave her warmth when she had none. You gave her life when even the void sought to take her. Do you understand what you have done?" Ethan shook his head helplessly. "I just gave her a blanket." The warrior's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile, but close. "To us, That is more than enough. He turned and raised his voice, carrying over the ranks of soldiers. He is chosen. The warriors slammed their weapons against the ground in unison, the sound like thunder rolling across the field. Ethan stumbled back, panic rising in his chest. Wait, what does that mean? I didn't choose anything. The leader stepped closer, his expression solemn. By our law, the one who saved the life of the heir becomes bound to her fate. You are tied to her now, human. Her survival is yours. Her enemy's yours. The stars themselves have witnessed it. Ethan felt the world spin around him. Bound? Enemies? He was just a farm boy, barely 17, with more chores and dreams. And now an alien army was declaring him part of some destiny he didn't understand. From behind, a weak voice called out, "Please don't hurt him." They all turned. The alien girl stood unsteadily in the doorway of the barn, his blanket still around her shoulders. Her eyes shone brighter now, strength returning little by little. She looked fragile but determined, her gaze sweeping over the warriors before settling on Ethan. "He saved me," she said softly, her voice carrying a weight that seemed impossible for someone so weak. "He is my protector." The army dropped to one knee as one, the sound of armor clashing against frozen ground echoing across the farm. Ethan stared, his mouth dry, completely overwhelmed. The girl stepped toward him, clutching the blanket tighter, and whispered only for him to hear. "You gave me warmth. For us, that means more than life itself." Ethan didn't know what to say. He was just a boy who hadn't been able to sleep, who thought a blanket might help someone in need. But now, staring at the 100 warriors kneeling to a girl who claimed him as protector, he realized his life would never be the same again. And somewhere deep inside, past the fear, a flicker of resolve lit within him. Maybe, just maybe, he could rise to meet whatever fate had chosen him for.